Hi. So on this episode of Foster Denovo Talks, we talk to Marnel Stafford, who is one of our senior financial advisors, and she talks to us about how she's formed a niche in the market, focusing on divorce and also menopause and women of a certain age.
All around women, and it's got to do with women of a certain age. It's got to do with women going through divorce, and the reason I'm there is probably because I've been through both. There is help. And someone like myself can sit down with you and say, let's make sense of what's going on in your finances at least. So you don't have that stress, on top of everything else.
And then she goes on to talk to us about forming a practice, taking on a junior advisor and helping to close that wealth gap.
I have a young financial advisor that works with me, and we are building to have a practice where I can understand the mum and dad, and he'll understand the kids. The boomers and the Gen Xers have built a lot of wealth. And how is that going to be transferred to these younger generations? So that's going to be a huge shift in the way we think and the way we work.
So do check it out. Hi, Marnel. Thanks for joining us on the Foster Denovo Talks podcast.
Hi, Helena. Lovely to be here. Lovely to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what we're not going to do is talk about your career through Foster Denovo, because we've already had one past podcast that you did with Sam on the Financial Planner Life, and we've talked about this lots. So I'd like to focus on a slightly different slant today, okay, which we've talked about loads in the past. But you have a niche, or you are forming a niche in your world of advising. So talk to me about the niche, what it is, how you got to that stage.
Okay, so basically it's all around women, and it's got to do with women of a certain age. It's got to do with women going through divorce. And the reason I'm there is probably because I've been through both. I am a woman of a certain age. I understand what it's like to go through the changes. And I've been through divorce, so I can understand and empathize with my clients when they are going through a divorce. So what I've done is I've decided to say, right, there's a lot of women going through these kind of things. How can I help them?
Yeah. Okay. And we're both in the whole situation, right? So we could wax lyrical
Yes.
for hours about this,
Yes.
and we'll try not to, okay?
Yes.
Otherwise we might forget what we're saying. So when you first meet a client and you go into that first and they say, right, this is my situation, what's the first and most important questions that you ask them?
So if it's someone who's going through divorce, the interesting question I ask, and they usually don't know how to answer it, is think about your lifestyle now and how you're going to have to change it after divorce, because it will change. You might be shopping at Waitrose at the moment. That might have to change. You might live in a big house at the moment. That might have to change. So make a list of your lifestyle and what it is that you have now and that you enjoy now. And then you're going to have to sit down and almost choose which ones to let go and which ones you're going to keep. And it's a difficult question.
It's a really difficult question, because as you're saying it, I'm thinking it to myself and I'm thinking, oh, this all sounds horrific. How do people react when you ask them that? Because it must be quite a shock.
It is a realization. It is a question of, I didn't think about that. And I think when you go through divorce, it's a very emotional thing. And people make emotional decisions. And what you need to do is you need to go back to that question. You need to go back to, this is my lifestyle right now. This is how it's going to change. And can I live with that? Or do I need to make changes in the agreements, in the settlements, to be able to live with the new lifestyle? And people have to sit down and think about it. It's not a question I ever get answered in the first meeting.
Well, I was going to say, do you ask it sort of several times and it goes through iterations, and people start off, maybe really strong, like I want to keep the house and I want this, etc. And then it sort of slowly, maybe, as you said, realization hits and they kind of...
Yes. I mean, a lot of women would say, I'd like to stay in the house that I'm living in at the moment. Um, my next question would then be, have you got children? Because if you don't, why are you staying in the house that you're living at the moment? If
Yeah.
it's a big house, do you really need it? Or is it just, it's comfortable? Because a lot of women go and say, oh, I want the house, and they forget about things like pensions. You can have the roof over your head, but what are you going to eat if you don't have any cash flow? So it's difficult decisions you have to make, and sometimes you have to give up the house and move into something smaller, or have a proper pension order, pension sharing order, or whatever the options is that you have. And this is the process: is you have to sit down and say, okay, what are the options, and which ones are going to work best for me?
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a thought-provoking question, I think, for everyone. And what would you say are the key mistakes that people make when they're going through this, sort of financial mistakes?
Well, like I said, I've been there, got the T-shirt. So the mistakes I made was to want to just settle, just get it over and done with, and it gets very emotional. A lot of women then have to now deal with things that the husband has dealt with before, finances, for instance. So they do need help, and this is where people like us come in and say, "Hold on, don't get too emotional. Don't think of I really don't like this guy at the moment. I understand the feeling, but just understand that these are decisions that's going to shape the rest of your life." So there's choices to be made.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, and you know, we and the people that you're talking about are at a certain age, right?
Mm.
So it's a different sort of world. So it was very much, husbands potentially were the ones that were looking after the finances, where the women were staying at home, etc. It's not to say that's not how everyone is, but there was a much more, sort of, for want of a better expression, blue and pink roles, right? That was how it was.
Yeah.
Is that what you're coming up against then?
Yes. I think our generation, you speak to people, and as much as we'd like to think that, men and women are equal and all things fair in love and war, it's not changed all that much. The generation before us, definitely, a lot of male dominance in where when it comes to discussing finances or making decisions about the finance. So you do get women who now sit and are faced with all of a sudden making decisions about a mortgage, which they never had to do before, making decisions about pensions, which they never had to do before. A lot of women have to now start working again. Going through a divorce, there needs to be an income. It's not always, oh, the husband will pay the maintenance. Things change, circumstances change. So there's the roles have changed, and we need to change with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, and obviously, we're talking about women of a certain age, and the menopause,
Mm.
word comes out, and I think there's so much chat
Mm.
about it now, isn't there? We've gone from a nation of never speaking about it to, my goodness, we can't shut up,
Mm.
and I don't think that's wrong at all, right? It's got to that stage, but obviously it does affect decision making at times, right? And we've talked about it. So how do you sort of guide your clients through that and help them through that sort of period?
I think the main thing is to be in a position where I completely understand it.
Mm.
Um, I understand the brain fog where you start a sentence and all of a sudden you can't remember what it was that you were saying. I sometimes sit in front of clients and I'm full on ready to discuss something, and halfway through I go, oh, sorry, forgot what I was saying there. Must be the menopause brain. And if I have someone sitting across me, same age, going through the same thing, they just smile and go, don't worry, I get it. So that's vice versa. I do get it. There's a lot that changes in your life, obviously. It has huge impact on everything you do. It has an impact on your job. Um, I went through having hot flushes at night, which meant I didn't sleep.
Yep, been
So
there.
if you
Thank
don't
you.
sleep, if you don't sleep, you can't be as productive the next day as you want to be. So it's those kind of small little things. And if you combine that with the lifestyles and the pressures and the stress we have in normal life at the moment, it can become too much. So I will sit down and say to someone, you know what, I understand what you're going through, and be a little bit kinder to yourself and slow down and just understand that there is help. And someone like myself can sit down with you and say, let's make sense of what's going on in your finances at least. So you don't have that stress, on top of everything else. The interesting thing I think as well is when we are in this menopause change, we usually have teenage kids at home and they're going through puberty.
Oh God.
So I can completely understand men going through their midlife crisis. It makes a lot of sense to me now because the poor guy is sitting at home thinking, I don't know what to deal with the wife or the children. So it's challenging,
Yeah.
and we need to just understand at least.
Well, it's as you said, everyone needs to be a bit kinder to themselves, and you're always your own worst critic, and everyone's got that inside voice where they're, sort of berating themselves about things, and it also knocks confidence, doesn't it? I think,
Oh, huge.
I've met
Mm.
lots of women of my age who, all of a sudden are starting to doubt themselves when they've been in really good jobs and all that sort of stuff, and the decision making. So then, if you're going through a divorce, for example, or you need to look at your finances, it shakes you, I should
Mm.
imagine.
Yeah, yeah, your confidence levels are a lot lower. I mean, I picked up a lot of weight during menopause, and it got to a point where I didn't want to go to the office anymore. I just felt almost embarrassed to go to the office. And you know, those are the kind of things that women deal with. So yes, we need to just be kinder. We need to just understand and just take a step back and say, okay, let's see how we can help each other.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. Um, so we've talked a lot about your client bank being, around women and menopause and a certain age going through divorce. In actual fact, I think I'm right in saying that your client bank is like 50-50, isn't it? Male and female. So,
Yes.
and men going through divorce and all that sort of stuff. So how do you find their needs differ, and how do you, or do you possibly, you don't treat them differently?
It's not about treating them differently. It's about understanding the way of thinking.
Hmm.
Men are very much, and we speak about this a lot, boxes. I put everything in a little box. So I put the divorce in a box, or I put the decision about finance in a box. Where women, we all know what it's like. It's like on a computer where all the tabs are open and somewhere some music's playing, and it's all over the place because that's how we wired. So my approach is sometimes different in the sense of, as a woman, there might be a lot more emotion involved. As a man, maybe a little less. Not always the case. Not always the case. But yes, there's a different approach in just saying, okay, as a woman, don't worry, I'm here, I care, and you can trust me. I think trust is a very big thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can get someone, on the other side of the table that you can trust, then that solves a lot of problems. And I feel that, as a woman dealing with women, again, if we go back to that topic, that is something that I've realized that happens a lot. There's a much more of a trust bonding going on. With the men, sometimes it's, these are the facts. This is what needs to be done. How are we going to do it? And then do it. So
Yeah.
that's the difference, I think, in the approach.
No, I think so. And obviously, we're speaking in generalizations because everyone is different, of course. But there are these sort of different sort of mindsets, etc. So you've really carved out this niche, and it's going brilliantly. When I look at your numbers, I mean, it's fantastic. So long may it rain, I say. But it's hard, right? It's hard when you're a new advisor coming onto the block, building your client bank, and all that sort of stuff. So how did you? I don't know if you fell into it, or how did you get into this niche, and how would you advise advisors in your similar position to try and find their own?
Well, to be honest, I think I kind of fell into it a little bit. And saying that, just, it was a question of, I saw some people I then realized, okay, wait a minute, I've been through this myself, and realized that trust building was just so much easier, male and female. But I think it's such an important thing us as women have, is that nurturing factor. And that's sometimes necessary. And I just feel that if you care enough about your clients, the money will follow. It'll
Yeah.
follow. So it's, at the end of the day, is really just looking at what they really need and making sure that they will have some benefit after this meeting. And that's my goal. And you know, like you say, the numbers show. And that's been the approach, is to just really listen and care, and the rest will follow.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've seen that. I mean, how do you, I don't, it's a bit of a tough question, I suppose, but how do you see, the financial sector and wealth management evolving to service clients' needs as they change, and how you as advisors have to change as well?
I think it's a question of, there's a lot of generational changes. We're all looking at the big wealth transfer that's lying ahead of us,
Yeah.
dealing with your boomers and Generation X all the way through to your Gen Zs.
We're
And
on to beta now.
I
I
know,
couldn't
I
believe it. I
know,
nearly fell off my
I
chair
know.
when I read that. So,
And the thing is to be able to just understand how each of these generations work, and understand that the boomers and the Gen Xers have built a lot of wealth. And how is that going to be transferred to these younger generations? So that's going to be a huge shift in the way we think and the way we work. Um, I think there's a lot of challenges lying ahead for us. Being a woman, one of, I think, 18% in the
I
UK,
know.
is to me, it was a little challenge, you know. People go, oh, the inequality and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, yeah, I hear you, but do something about it. And I think that's been my approach, is, okay, boys, I'll show you, and it worked. It worked.
Yeah, it has. It certainly has. I mean, let's not get that wrong at all. So, what does the future hold for the myth, the legend that is
Oh
Marnel? Go
my
on.
word. I think it's probably more of the same. I have a young financial advisor that works with me, and we are building to have a practice where I can understand the mum and dad, and he'll understand the kids. So it's a question of, okay, how are we going to look after this generational gap? Can we do something about it? And all we need to do is prepare. We know it's there, so we just need to prepare. And I think it's a huge thing in the financial advice profession at the moment, is to bring in the young blood, understand that we need them as older financial advisors, and bring in the girls, because the pie is big enough. There's a lot of people who need advice. The competition is not as hectic as everyone thinks it is. There's enough to go around. We just need to identify and say, right, how can I help you? And that's probably what I'm looking forward to, is to see how many more people I can help. That's what it's about, isn't it?
No, absolutely. And as you said, you're building this really nice practice where you've got a junior advisor coming in, you've got dedicated support staff. So you're in it for the long run now, and it's going brilliantly. So long may it continue, I say.
I hope so. I hope so.
Absolutely.
At my age, we need to, put in maybe a little bit more, because I probably want to retire in 10 or 12 years. So put in the hard work now and have a comfortable retirement. Why not? And hand over, because there will be someone I can hand over to.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Lovely. Thanks, Helena.